Good evening. Tonight's show is about a traumatic chapter in our history that just doesn't seem to ever go away. My guests are Marina Oswald Porter, the widow of Lee Harvey Oswald, who was the assassin of President Kennedy, conspiracy theories notwithstanding, and Priscilla Johnson McMillan, who is a journalist who, by bizarre coincidence, once knew Oswald in Russia, and once worked for John F. Kennedy, and has now written a kind of dual biography entitled Lee and Marina. The Oswald story began when Lee, who was a self-proclaimed Marxist, defected to Russia and met and married Marina in 1961. Soon they moved to America. Lee began showing erratic and violent behavior as he took up various causes. And of course, here is how most of us saw him for the first time after he was arrested in Dallas in 1963. Marina, it's been 14 years since the assassination. I guess, let me ask you this way. What is your strongest emotion that you feel when you think of Lee Harvey Oswald?
Right now? Like during the press conference, it was so... No, I'm sorry, that's not right.
Well, what would you say to him if you
After I finished the book, and I saw the picture, how I was betrayed, really, with the wrong cause.
How you were betrayed?
I felt. So, like before, maybe I thought if I dream about it and I would see Lee in my dreams, I will ask question why. Right now, after reading the book, I even don't have the words what I would say, but it's so much deep, not hostility toward him, but so much anger that I will say, how dare you really ruin my life, my children, life, and broke many hearts in this country. I mean, many people all over the world.
And the book...
There's nobody have a right to do what he did.
No. And the book changed your feelings about him considerably, because as I gather, you were able to see things in sequence, which you realized then were not only things in sequence, realized the pattern, but also there were some startling revelations in the book for you about him.
You're trying to remember, try to have a good memory, so you can show to children another side of the father, not the one that's from newspapers. But when you read the book, you really doubt even that you have been loved.
So, even that you had been loved?
Yes.
So you have mixed feelings, I suppose, about having done the book. Would you rather have had your illusions, you know what I mean? Would you rather have not learned what you've learned by going through the experience of the book?
No.
No, better
you have to face it, yes, that's right.
I think Marina is a great one for facing up to experience as it is.
Well, you have to face real love.
To have survived all of this.
And yet being vulnerable to it at the same, not getting hard, not getting a shell, not being vulnerable, just as vulnerable as possible, and yet facing up at the same time, I think.
The book doesn't buy the conspiracy theory. But it also doesn't refute the conspiracy theory in detail. It just doesn't take that line. The last poll, I think, was 73% of the population still believed in the conspiracy theory. Do you think it will ever go away? The conspiracy theory, yes. Does it still occur to you that
it's not because the conspiracy really exists, it's just the people who want to believe that way. Maybe somebody, no matter how honest you are and how hard you try to prove the truth, some people just close their mind and believe their own way.
Yes, there are people who cling to it. And in fact, would have you be part of the conspiracy theory?
Yes.
Because, and that's rather, I must say, a delicious idea, at least in fictional idea, that you, in fact, it's just a little too contrived, that you happen to know Oswald in Russia, that you then wrote a book absolving all of those people who are suspected in conspiracies, that you happened to work for the State Department, and that you, I happened to notice the initials CIA tattooed on your back.
Well, I translated for the State Department for a month in 1956, but 3 years before I became a journalist, and I would never have done such a thing, wear two hats at once, but sometimes Marina and I discuss what are we doing with all this wonderful money we're getting from the CIA and the KGB. Last night we were talking over the phone. Oh, yeah, what will you do with that? And why were you so cheap about this today?
Of course, no one can ever prove that he or she isn't connected with the CIA, can he? Because to deny it would be the first clue.
What did you mean?
Sorry?
What do you mean by that? Nobody can prove that I don't work with...
No, no one can ever utterly prove he isn't connected with the CIA.
No, I said her or she.
If they were effective at it, they would be completely secret.
Well, you can, all your government dossiers, you can get all of those, and I got all of mine, and I didn't have any security clearance. In other words, I was kind of on the trouble side as far as the U.S. government, if anything. So
yes,
which makes
of course, that's how they would make you look if you were with the CIA.
Anyway, if they did a good enough job on us.
I don't buy the idea, but maybe you're convincing me. Seriously, you, for example, Marina, may I call you Marina? We've met before. Can you be sure that your husband didn't know Jack Ruby?
Yes.
How?
Okay, later on I found out that Jack Ruby was owner of a bar.
I assume everyone remembers that Jack Ruby is the man who shot him.
That's only... oh, I see.
Sure. I'm just clearing.
Well, he didn't drink. So he would not be... No, the claims were that he attended his bar. These were people seeing him.
Yeah, well, you can go to a bar for more reasons than drinking, of course.
Or seeing showgirls.
Yeah.
Or anyway, the timing is bad because he was home all the time. I don't know, I'm sorry, you have to buy my intuition by that. I really don't have the proof.
Yeah, true, because as you know, the woman is always the last to know.
You know, like if somebody tell you, how can you be sure that your husband went to work just because he said he went to?
True.
Because I wasn't following him, so I really do not know.
Mm-hmm. But
you
by
still
intuition,
know that
you feel he didn't know Ruby, but of course you can never really know. Yeah.
I cannot argue somebody's opinion that he might knew Jack Ruby, but I do not believe it.
When I say November 22nd, 1963, do you have clear memories of that day? How did you find out that
November 22nd?
JFK, 22nd, I mean 63, how did you learn that JFK had been shot?
I learned from my neighbor, I'm sorry, not neighbor, a friend of mine that I was living with at the time. She told me the night before that the president coming to Dallas. And I was very eager in the morning to, watch television. And it was very nice to see thousands of people cheering and greeting the president. And of course, it was a very good mood, around. But she wasn't home. But then when she came back, I was asking her to interpret it, whatever he was saying and how it was. And then it was a commotion on television. And she said, oh, my God, the president had been shot.
You weren't watching the screen at the time.
I was watching the screen.
You were watching the screen.
Maybe my back was turned, just for a moment or whatever. But later on, she said the shots came from school book depository. And all of a sudden, my heart ached just for an instant.
Because you knew he was connected with that building.
Yes, it crossed my mind, for instance, I ran outside because I don't want to show my emotions to Ruth. I was very afraid that it might be Lee.
But did something resembling the words, oh my God, Lee shot him, go through your head at that moment?
Yes, just for instance. So I ran outside and my hands were trembling. So I went to make sure that the rifle was still in the garage. So I opened the door and I looked, the package was there. And I said, thank God he didn't do it.
A gun was in the garage,
not the gun.
Or just the
yes,
package?
It was a package.
You assumed the gun was in?
So I didn't thank God it wasn't. It was another loony.
Another loony. Is that what you said?
Yes. If that's my expression.
Yes. I just want to be sure I understood you on that. After his arrest, we all learned that your late husband had tried to kill General Walker, the right-wing general, which you knew. How did you find that out? And when?
He did not come from home till late. And I was worried, and I found a note was left for me in case if something happened to me, what to do with the instructions on it. I forgot what the instructions was. With the key to mailbox was or something like that, and he left the money, and I didn't know what it was all about. So he came home very late and very scared and pale, and I asked him what happened, and he turned the radio on and was listening for a while, and he said that I tried to shoot General Walker. Of course, I was in panic, and I asked him, how did you come up with such a crazy idea to shoot a person? Why? And he said that because his excuse was that if somebody at the right time dispose of Hitler, maybe the world will be spared of all this millions of innocent people have been, will be killed.
Yeah. So he saw himself as the savior of the world by eliminating Walker.
So he said that he was a fascist and he is a man that shouldn't exist in society. So I tried to argue a case with him about that if you have one idea and somebody disagrees with you, just don't go shoot them. You debate your ideas and do the peaceful way about.
Yes, so you'd caution
him
against violence.
It was not in the radio news for a while. And when they announced that he was very disappointed he missed him.
Well, speaking of people who could have changed history, of course, if at that moment you had turned your husband in to the police, John F. Kennedy might be alive today.
Yeah, I lived with that guilt for many years. But
I wonder why you didn't turn him in. Were you afraid of him? Were you hoping that he would reform?
First of all, I could not go to the police because I did not speak English. So I have to have an interpreter. I did.
He spoke Russian, your husband?
Yes. I don't know where the police was. It was mainly fear, and it was selfish reasons for me, be afraid to be alone, not to tell tale on your husband, the second motive.
People usually don't turn their husbands in, but you say you do feel some guilt about that now.
Yes, but I was very pleased that man wasn't killed, and I was afraid that police will come home in a minute in the house.
You had another chance,
and
though,
he was
in a
joking.
way.
He said everybody think that everybody just driving away, just walked away or ran away. They never would be suspecting somebody, just running away from scene of crime.
Another time, and I did not know about this until I found out about it in the book. In '63, Richard Nixon enters the story. There was a headline, "Nixon calls for decision to force Reds out of Cuba." Headline. Lee Oswald read that and did what?
Oh, he said that he got dressed and was leaving, and I think he was putting a gun or something in him.
You think he took a gun with him?
At least, excuse me.
I'm sorry, Nixon was in town, I believe, in Dallas, was he?
I don't know. This is what I have been told by Lee, that
no.
He's coming to town.
He wasn't in town, and yet he still said this anyway.
He strapped on a gun or hid a gun and said, I'm going to go have a look.
And he said, I said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to have a look. Nixon's coming to town. So we'll have a fight. I told him if he's going to leave the house, it's going to be over my dead body. So we wrestled.
This was after the General Walker incident?
Yes.
11 days.
And how long before the Kennedy assassination?
7 months.
Well, you know all the statistics.
Yeah. So that's the second time where you realized you hadn't cured him of his violent ideas and perhaps then could have turned him in.
But how can you turn someone in just because he said he was going to go and take a look at Nixon and had a pistol in his waist? I mean...
Well, I know it's easy to say that would be enough for me, but I realize it isn't that easy.
Anyway, he kind of gave in. I think in a way he gave in. If he really could have, when I lock him in the bathroom, I have to hold from inside. How long could I? I'm not that physically strong.
Yes, you locked him in the bathroom.
Maybe he really was kind of testing me somehow and see how far he can get away.
The diary of his that came out, I gather, was quite a shock to you because that ties in with what you said at the beginning of the show. You learned things about him that you didn't know, from fairly lurid sexual details to I don't know what all else.
I did not know what the diary was all about till it was published later on.
Yeah.
And I did not give it to anybody.
Well, can you help me on this, Priscilla? What were the things you learned that were learned in the diary? I get one that he had venereal disease at one point.
Well,
I believe.
It wasn't the diary.
That was elsewhere.
But I think it was the knowledge that he had wanted to marry another girl before you, Ella.
I knew he had been writing the diary, but when he was writing, I was suspicious. I was thinking, what if he's a spy, himself.
It occurred to you that he might be a spy.
Yes.
What I was thinking of was a reference to another woman whom he married you in order to spite.
I wish I knew that before.
You're not learning that now.
No.
I
learned after all this happened.
Had you known that before, you might have turned him in or something.
But you know something? Yeah. I met Marina first the week before the diary was published. Somehow it got from the Dallas police into the hands of the Dallas Morning News and appeared in glorious technicolor in the papers, you see. And Marina read it.
Dallas police probably left it.
No, I did not read it. Somebody called me and said, how dare you publish such a private thing?
They blamed her for selling it.
And I said, what are you talking about? He said, it's smeared all over the newspaper. And I said, I didn't have it in my hands to give it to anybody.
But the point was that when I met Marina, it was the week before any of that, and she talked about Lee one way. And when I came back 2 months later, and she had read about Ella, and him having married her partially to spite Ella, Marina was different about Lee, and it took at least 2 months before you would open up and speak about him very much at all. At least that long.
Oh, Mrs. McMillan,
and you
your
never
book
spoke the same about Lee again as before the diary.
Yes, changed the image completely. Was he insane at the time he killed Kennedy in any clinical sense of the word, or what would you say?
You know, I'd like to answer, because I don't think of people that way too much. He's a person to me. I don't think Marina even likes it when I speak of him that much, because he hurt her so badly.
I don't. It's surprising to me that you can speak of him.
But he became, with great difficulty, he was the hard one to put together for the book. Marina, you see, she's all life. She's all life. But you had to triangulate to make him a person. You had to put together what he was doing without Marina's knowing it, together with what he did in the documents, the letters he wrote and everything. And he became quite a person to me. And I became sorry myself at his fate. And to me, he's a man, a person, a human being, just like any other human being, and not really somebody to hate or judge. We're all capable of bad things. It's awful what he did, but to me, he isn't crazy. He's just a person.
If you can blame him for your unhappiness, whom can you blame for his unhappiness? The mother in history?
Well, I'm afraid that I would blame her very, very heavily.
I believe that's the phrase that Oswald's mother used to describe herself. I am a mother in history.
Well, a wonderful writer.
Gene Stafford wrote a book called A Mother in History about her.
But I think Lee wanted to make her a mother in history. I think he wanted to express his feelings of hatred for her, but he also wanted to complete his victory over her by being the child who really fulfilled all her dreams and made her a mother in history. And she also raised him in such a way that he had no choice but to do very ambitious things. He couldn't do little everyday things. He had to defect to Russia. He had to redefect back with Marina. He had to shoot himself or slash his wrist or kill people. He couldn't do, like de Mohrenschildt said, if only he could drink and smoke or find himself a rosy-cheeked young girl, why all this wouldn't have happened.
It's a good statement about George de Mohrenschildt.
Yeah.
He did not smoke and he did not drink.
Beware of people who don't smoke or drink. Did you see your husband shot on television?
Year later, 1 year after all.
Not the live telecast.
No, I didn't.
But you've seen
I wasn't
the
exposed to
replay.
television at the time.
What emotions, if I may ask, that do you have when you see that?
That's what I'm here for. Pardon me?
What goes through your mind, or went through your mind when you first saw that?
On television?
Yeah. Was it immediately after the event that you first saw it, or years later?
Year later.
Years later.
1 year.
So you're asking what was my reaction 1 year later, or when I learned that Lee was shot?
Both.
Okay. You don't think of your husband as an assassin? Not at the beginning, 2 days later, after President Kennedy was shot.
Too incredible.
Yes, I did not pronounce Lee guilty,
Yeah.
right away. And I don't know how do you describe that your husband? I mean, everything just fell down from under my feet. I was just not slowly, but I fast. I was flying off the cliff, or how you call it, I was jumping the cliff. Didn't know which.
But your feelings about him now, I gather, would make it somewhat easier for you to watch that replayed than originally, although it seems somewhat monstrous.
It's happened very quickly, on television.
What's been the effect on your children? Yours and his.
I think my children were upset with the statement I made in front of all news reporters about Lee being guilty.
Bad feelings about him, yeah.
Nothing in my life would like to have. I mean, it's impossible to dream about. But I would love for Lee to be innocent, for my sake, for children's sake, especially for children's sake.
Did you ever think of changing their name?
Somebody suggested that, and no.
You don't?
I didn't think so.
Have you ever met
I don't think it's a proper thing.
You have never met Mrs. Onassis, I assume, Jacqueline Onassis.
No.
It's interesting in the book that there was a kind of psychological intertwining with you and the Kennedy family. I believe you had a picture of JFK, and
I don't think
I read
so.
that you, if that isn't true, that you sweated
We
out.
had a cutout.
I think it says so in the book.
Yeah.
And that you sort of, as you know the expression, sweated out the difficult pregnancy Mrs. Onassis had with young Patrick, who died. Kind of a feeling for them and all. Can you conceive of meeting her? It could happen by chance at a literary party or something.
That's impossible.
Would you have anything to say, or have any feelings?
No, I guess I said enough in my nightmares or dreams, always begging for forgiveness. But in
Have you had a
real life,
specific dream of that, of
many times.
asking forgiveness of?
Yes, I think once she finally did, but I don't know, in real life, I don't believe that she even speak to me, more or less.
But you have dreamed of asking her forgiveness?
Yes, so I guess it's
That's interesting.
subconsciously, it was a guilt in front of her was so deep. It come out not only once, but many times. And I'm not telling that to make, good picture in front of America.
Yeah.
That's not it, but that's the truth.
Can you get through the rest of your life now reasonably well? Are you somewhat adjusted?
I'll try.
Yeah. Would you wish you had never met him?
Oh, yes.
You do?
If I knew what was ahead of me, I would never come to America with all my love to American people.
Would you like to go back to Russia now?
To live? No. I'd be afraid to. I would not survive there. I got a little bit spoiled by American way of life. You can speak freely right here. You have conveniences at home. Well, it's only 2 weeks. But of course I like my motherland.
Yes.
I love Russian people. I'm proud of Russian heritage. Really am. I think Russia has lots of good things to offer.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here and sharing memories that I know are difficult and painful, and I commend you on how well you're conducting yourself in doing this. And good luck to you. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you for having us.